Howdy there, sports fans. Welcome back to the channel. What in the world is Wayne doing today? Well, today I'm going to show you the final chapter of my recent trip to Alaska that unfortunately ended in disaster. So in the last video, Steve and I ended up at a motorcycle campground in Tok, Alaska. We spent one night there and then we headed to Fairbanks to meet up with the rest of our group that had split off from Watson Lake. We had rented a house and we spent 2 nights in Fairbanks before tackling the Dalton highway. Those 2 days gave us a chance to get recharged, work on the bikes, and for me to get a new rear tire put on. This experience of getting the new tire put on was my first of 2 disappointing interactions I had dealing with non-Triumph dealers. When I located the tire I wanted, the dealer said that because they don't sell Triumphs, they won't work on them. So I had to drive to the dealership, remove the wheel in their parking lot, take the wheel into them where they installed the new tire, and then afterwards they brought the wheel back out to me so I could put it back on my bike. I've not run into this from a dealer before and I was a little put off by it. Like, you know, I just need a new tire. Maybe this is a common occurrence and I've just never run into it before. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what your experience has been. So once we were all rested up in Fairbanks, we headed for the Dalton. Unfortunately, we chose a bad day to start this trip because the weather was just awful. It rained all day, and for those of you who have ridden dirt roads covered in calcium chloride, you know how slick it can get. In addition, there was construction everywhere, so we had to sit and wait for up to half an hour for a pilot car sometimes, all in the rain. Because the weather was so bad, I didn't really get any videos that day, but suffice it to say, it was a real challenge. And little did I know that this was the start of troubles with my bike. Something was brewing inside the motorcycle. The calcium chloride was doing something to it that I did not anticipate. She was running fine, but deep down, something bad was happening. Our plan had been to go from Fairbanks to Coldfoot Camp on day 1. Coldfoot Camp is halfway between Fairbanks and Deadhorse, and it is where many overlanders spend their first night on the Dalton. But by the time we got to Yukon River Camp, we were wet, cold, and completely exhausted. And as a group, we decided right then and there we were going to spend the night. They had hot food and warm beds, everything we needed. Fortunately, the next morning we awoke to beautiful sunny skies and we headed north. All right, folks, here we are. We are in Yukon River Camp. We had a horrible, horrible day riding yesterday. It rained the whole time. There was construction, there was mud. Today we have clear sun. We were supposed to go to Coldfoot last night, but didn't make it because of all this. So, Coldfoot is only 120 miles away. And we are going to, we're lucky if we can average 30 miles an hour. So it's going to take us at least 4 hours to get there. We'll stop at the north, it's Arctic Circle sign. It's about 30 miles up the road. And we'll kind of go from there. So, anyway. Here's the group. We're getting ready to start off. This is the haul road and the trucks come by here really, really hard and fast. So we have to really be careful. All right, let's see how the day shapes up. More of the boreal forest here, these tall, thin trees that are known here in the boreal forest. So we're going right through it. Tomorrow, when we head to Deadhorse, we'll hit tundra, and hopefully we'll see some muskox as well. That'll be cool. And of course, what ride up the Dalton would not be complete without the mandatory stop at the Arctic Circle sign? You all got to do it, right? The ride was great, and we made it to Coldfoot Camp with ease. These camps were originally built for the pipeline workers and were basically barracks. We paid $249 per night for a room with 2 twin beds, and a third person could stay with us on the floor in a sleeping bag for an additional $60. Let me show you what it looks like. Right, so this is the place that we are staying this evening. here at Coldfoot Camp in Alaska, and it's kind of some old barracks from the workers who used to work up here. A little kind of kitchenette area, or not a kitchenette, but a game room, TV, restrooms over there. Then you head down this long hallway, door after door after door. These little tiny rooms with 2 beds in each one of them. And then a third person can stay if they bring their own sleeping bag. And this is Mark, our third party. And he is on the sleeping bag tonight. Well, in our little tiny room, we have Steve in his undies.
I'm in my undies. What are you doing?
And my bed is 2 rooms, and you're on TV, Grandpa.
Grandpa, you're older than I am.
Finally, on day 3, we headed for Deadhorse on another really nice day. The road was fine, other than a few potholes, some dried mud in places, and Adigan Pass, where we stopped for lunch break, was absolutely gorgeous. Without issues or ceremony, we pulled into the Aurora Hotel for our night in Deadhorse. There's not a whole lot to do in this town, and the Aurora had a great restaurant, so we just stayed put there for the evening. The next day, it was time to start heading back south again, but the day called for more miserable weather, so we decided to try and leave early and beat it. It was cold, only about 3 degrees Celsius, but first, we had to get gassed up. All right, folks, so what do we have here? Yesterday, we rode from Coldfoot Camp all the way to Deadhorse, Alaska, here on the Arctic Ocean. And this morning, it's 3.5 degrees Celsius right now, very cold. Supposed to be some rain in the forecast. So everybody's fueling up right now for the ride. And I did this yesterday, so I have to help everybody. What? So anyway, we're getting ready for a cold and possibly wet ride today. We'll see how it goes. One of my cameras only has 17% life. It had 80% yesterday, but as you know, cameras don't do well in the cold. So anyway, let's go have a ride. And then we had to go get our pictures taken in front of the famous store and put our stickers on, and then we headed back the way we came. The return trip turned out to be pretty miserable, and as I said before, something was brewing deep inside my motorcycle. In addition to rain and sloppy conditions, there was construction where we had to go through 8 to 10 inches of thick, peanut buttery mud. One of our fellow riders went down 3 times in this section. As on the first day, when riding was miserable, I never had the opportunity to take any videos of that day. The scenery, however, was still gorgeous. We rode past rivers, mountain ranges, and of course, the Alaska pipeline followed us every step of the way. Coming back over Adigan Pass proved to be a bit of a challenge, as it was quite slippery on the ascent. Once past Adigan Pass, the going got much better, and we made it back to Coldfoot Camp without issue. We all had dinner, got a good night's rest for our return to civilization the next day. Unfortunately, the next day started out wet again, so we decided to wait until about 10 o'clock in the morning to leave. And that's when disaster struck. By this point, our group had grown to 6 riders. 4 went on ahead, and I hung back with a newcomer to our group. About 5 miles south of Coldfoot Camp, my bike died. Just completely died. We tried jumping it, we checked all the fuses, nothing worked. Curiously though, my auxiliary lights worked, which were connected directly to the battery. So the battery wasn't the issue, something else was going on. Jay, who was the new rider who had joined us, he stayed with me while I tried to sort things out. The first thing I did was I called BCAA. For those of you not familiar with British Columbia, BCAA stands for British Columbia Automobile Association. It's just like the AAA in the US, and in fact, it's affiliated with AAA. So I called them, and they switched me over to AAA in Fairbanks. They told me they would have a tow truck out within the hour, and I informed them that it was at least a 6-hour drive, if not more, because it was a dirt and gravel road, but they said they'd send someone. Once I knew that help was on the way, I told Jay he could go. Go on ahead, I'll be fine. There's a tow truck coming to get me. Meanwhile, I'm standing alongside the highway in the middle of the wilderness, constantly looking over my shoulder for grizzlies and moose. Who knew, right? An hour later, AAA called me back and said, sorry, we don't go that far north. Holy shit. Now what am I going to do? Okay, so my next course of action was to pull out my InReach device and hit the SOS button. True to form, they called me almost immediately and asked if I was hurt or in any danger. I said, other than being in the wilderness and surrounded by bears, no, I was unhurt. So they said, well, they can patch me through to the State Patrol who would assist me from there. So they patched me through to the State Patrol, and they indicated that they would contact a towing service in Fairbanks to come get me. After about 20 minutes on hold, the towing service came on the line and indicated that it would cost $5,500. That's $5,500 to come get me and take me back to Fairbanks. Holy shit, I had no idea it would be that expensive. But I didn't feel like I had any choice. It was either abandon the bike or pay to take it somewhere and have it fixed. In my mind, it was something that could be fixed. In hindsight, knowing what I know now, I should have just kicked it over the edge of the cliff and left it there. So the tow truck driver tells me his day is busy and he won't be able to leave Fairbanks until early evening. So he would be able to pick me up sometime after midnight. And it's now 11 a.m. when I'm talking to him. So what am I gonna do? Sit here alongside the road in the wilderness for the next 12 hours? No, hell with that. The next truck that came along, I flagged him down and I hitched a ride back to Coldfoot camp. And I let the tow truck driver know that's where he could pick me up. He finally showed up at 2 a.m. We went and got the bike, and then it took us 8 hours to get back to Fairbanks. Boy, was that a tiring evening. When we got to Fairbanks is where I came across my second unpleasant experience with a dealership. As the tow truck driver was unloading my bike in the dealer's parking lot, I went into the service desk where I was promptly told, we don't sell it, we don't service it. Now what? The tow truck driver is dumping the bike in your parking lot right now. And they said, oh, no problem, you can park it there. We just can't service it. Well, I knew there was a Triumph dealer in Anchorage, and I had already had an appointment with them for that coming Wednesday to have my brakes done. So I rented a U-Haul, loaded the bike, said goodbye to my friends, and I headed south. When I got to Anchorage, the dealer helped me unload the bike and said that they would get to work on it right away, and I went and found a place to stay for a few nights. It was a really shitty Airbnb in a really shitty part of town. Just my luck after everything I'd just gone through. The next day, the dealer called me with disastrous news. Apparently, there's a drain hole under the battery in case any water gets into that compartment. Turns out that the peanut buttery calcium chloride that we rode through on day one of the Dalton had plugged that hole, and once that calcium chloride dries, it turns into concrete. When the dealer pulled the battery, it was sitting in 3 inches of muddy water. But the battery was fine. You know what wasn't fine? The wiring harness, the main relay, and the main fuse are all located under the battery. That wiring had been sitting under salt water, because that's what calcium chloride is, salt water for 3 to 4 days without my knowledge and had fried the electronics. The dealer asked me if I wanted them to try and fix it, and I said, yes, I've come this far, let's get it running if we can. About 2 hours later, I get a call, and they tell me they got it running. Great, except they said it's not gonna last. The wiring harness will need to be replaced in the next 5 to 10,000 miles, but it should certainly get me home. So I said, great, I'll come pick it up. So they hand me the keys and I take off. I get about a mile away and the bike dies again. I call the dealer, who quickly as someone come tow me back. When I get back to the dealer, they basically said, sorry, the bike is totaled. To replace this wiring harness and get this bike back running the way it should, it's going to cost more money than the bike is worth. The labor alone to replace the wiring harness would be more than the value of the bike. And that I should file a claim with my insurance company, which I have done. They've already denied the claim once. I pushed back because their rationale was not accurate, in my opinion. And so I'm still waiting for the insurance company. So I'm here at the dealership. I've just been told my bike is totaled. At this point, the general manager of the dealership comes up to me and tells me how sorry he is about my situation. He offers to sell me any bike on his showroom floor at his cost, which was a hugely generous offer. It was just incredible. I told him I couldn't do that for a couple of reasons. First, I didn't want to rush into choosing my next bike. And secondly, I would have to import it into Canada and pay duties and taxes and fees, and it just would get very complicated. He totally understood, and then he offered me one of the most generous things I've ever heard. He offered to buy me a plane ticket home, which he did. By the way, the name of this dealer is the Motorcycle Shop in Anchorage. I cannot recommend them highly enough. So as I film this video, I'm sitting here at my home in Pender Island, and my bike, Olive is her name, by the way, she's still in Alaska. I have filed a claim with the insurance company. The reason they denied it the first time was they cited due to lack of maintenance. And I quickly fired back that this bike has been meticulously maintained, and I have all the service records to prove it. Furthermore, I sent them a copy of the owner's manual. I told them to show me where in the maintenance section there's any mention that the dealer or the owner should check the drain hole under the battery. They are now reconsidering my claim. I will get a new bike. I just don't know what it is right now. This is the first time in over 15 years that I've not owned a motorcycle, and it feels a little weird, but I will be back on the road soon. I'm just grateful I made it home safe. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next ride. Ciao.